What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast today, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here's a clip from our song, At Least You Tried.
But what if your book has not been written? What if you have one more song left? What if you have what it takes at the bottom of the well? What if you have what's been missing? What if there's someone who needs those words, needs your melody? Dig down deep. What will the others say? They say, God damn, at least you tried. At least you tried. What will the others say? They say, God damn, at least you tried. At least you tried.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band, at Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and there'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast. Today's guest is Caleb Geronimo. Caleb is a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist hailing from Salina, Kansas. He brought his folk and groove musings to Kansas City in 2021, and he has been jamming with a plethora of musicians and artists from all genres since he arrived. From video game soundtracks to jam band madness, he finds a way to fit in his eclectic experiences into an expansive sound for any taste. It's a great episode. Enjoy.
The Live and Create podcast.
Yeah, I had a blast that weekend though, and man, you're just a great player, super fun, and I loved like the conversations in the car, and where I can just tell it. At least to me, it seems like you are constantly studying and thinking about things and wrestling with ideas. Is that am I calling it right there?
Yeah, I guess I like have spent a lot of my time, especially in car rides. I just haven't had radio in my car, so I'm so used to just talking the whole time, and I'm a big talker.
Yeah.
So, I think with musicians, especially, you have like so many interesting stories and perspectives that for me, it's like I'm almost like letting myself down by not trying to pick people's brains and like learning about kind of different perspectives, especially when it's like, okay, you're an amazing musician and such a great showman and a business minded person, and you have Brian in there who's been teaching for however many years, one of the most liked guys I've ever met in my life, and you have all these people with
He is.
yeah, you could go to the grocery store anywhere in Kansas City, they're like, oh, Brian, I love Brian. But yeah, you have an opportunity with especially with Twice on Sunday to be with a lot of musicians you wouldn't normally be with, and so I try to take the time to learn from them and kind of go into places in your mind and kind of share what you've been thinking about, because I just love tearing apart ideas and like, how does this work? What is this thing we're doing? How does it work? What are we actually doing here? Because even in a car to the middle of nowhere near St. Louis, there's all of these paths led us to this really weird circumstance that we're all grown people in a van driving with complete strangers. Some people had never played with none of us had really played together.
I think that was my second time ever meeting you. And for the listener, we're part of it's like a wedding band collective. We do, it's all of us, we have our main projects. And then this is the other project we get to be part of, which is really cool. Twice on Sunday. And yeah, it's basically like 3 different bands, right? And you almost don't know who's going to be on what set when it comes out.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I guess being a bass player, I get to play with everybody and see all the different collectives, and so there's usually kind of core groups of people, and then you can sprinkle people on top of it, and that's kind of, that's what's been cool about, you know, with you. And I can't remember, I think it was Andrew, or the saxophone player, who was there with us,
yeah.
because he had
was
never
killing
played
it.
with us before. And with the horn players, you know, you have so many horn players. I never know where they come from, or, you know, is it a college guy or is it like, you know, a jazz guy? You never really know. And so that's cool. It reminds me a lot of the jam we do on Wednesdays at O'Dowd's, where there's a core group
Yeah.
of people that have all played together, all know the set list, and then you can really, that core idea can really morph and change with a new group of people experiencing it, because you're getting like everybody's, it's the same thing as a conversation, right? In the car, you're getting everyone's perspective, and it's an ongoing story that can be just morphed to the left or right, and you don't know where it's going to go. That conversation could go
Right.
any direction with the premise. The premise is your song, you know. And when we're working with people with more strict set lists, that, you know, there's less fluctuation, but even that little bit of fluctuation, you really hear it with each group, you know, depending on who's the
Right.
singer, who's playing guitar. You know, Daniel's a great example of that, where the way he plays drums, we were jamming last night at O'Dowd's, and I was just like, man, the kick patterns, playing bass to those kick patterns that Daniel has, the pocket's way different than playing with somebody who maybe is more gospel based, or somebody who's more jazz based. And he's like, yeah, you know, playing all these dance songs gives you that perspective. And so that's what I just love about being able to play with so many people. And I really feel pretty spoiled with Twice on Sunday a lot of the time, because I'm one of like 2 bass players in the group, so I get to jump around.
You get called up when people are paying extra money.
Yeah,
you know?
and I get to play with everybody, and that's like always been my goal in music, is to just play with everybody, and be a part of as many things as I can. I've been cutting back, and that's been like the hardest thing about this musical journey, is like cutting back. Where can I, like, how much time do I have? I always call it like the economy of time, right?
Yeah.
You only have so much of this life that we have, these years today, to do the things that you need to do. So it's like, all right, you have to prioritize what is, you know, it's like that. I don't know what the lady is who's like cleaning your house. Like, does this spark joy in my life? It's like, all right,
God, I know what I know you're talking about. I can't think about it. I can't think of her name though.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I can never remember those kind of stuff. I mean, I can never remember the names of songs half the time, and then they start playing, I'm like, oh yeah, that one. You know.
Then you remember all the pieces it locks in.
Yeah.
What started this process for you to start streamlining?
You know, honestly, it was talking about like music and this whole thing with my therapist. I started going to therapy about like a year ago. I don't know. Resolve KC is really great source. I'm not. This isn't an ad or a plug, but it's really good. It's they have a lot of affordable options, and so musicians, I think artists and musicians, getting mental health help is like so important, because it's such an interpersonal thing, you know. And so when I started kind of being on my own, you know, I didn't have a group, and so I was just like playing everything I could do with everybody. I said yes to everything, and I remember getting into last summer around April. You know, I was doing just started therapy, and was talking with Deanne and Seth and Luca. We were going up to Deadwood, and for those guys don't know, Deadwood, South Dakota gig. A lot of Kansas City musicians go up there, and it's about a week, and you're out with no Wi-Fi in this town, this party town, and it's a great gig. But preparing for it's pretty, you know, it's 4.5 hours, 5 days. And so, yeah, and I've gone, I went 3 times with 3 different bands, and had to learn new sets every time. And talking to them, yeah, it was really fun. It was a good learning experience.
And for those who don't know, like 4 hour, like we have a 4-hour set that we have and run with it. Like straight up 4 hours, no breaks, if that we can do. And that's, I think, 68 or 70 songs in there. So it's like, if you're doing 4.5 hours, you're probably learning at least what, 80 songs?
Yeah.
70 to 80 songs?
Yeah, the
something
first
like that?
one, it gets-
Unless there's a lot of jam type stuff. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, it's about because the thing is, you're not playing the same set list every night, so it's probably about 80 songs, 70 to 80 songs. But now I've played with so many groups that there's overlapping. It's like the Venn diagram of songs.
I bet.
So I'm like, okay, I know these ones you guys know. So I'm only learning 30, 40 songs sometimes, like max 40 songs.
Nice.
Because I also sing, 15 to 20 songs on my own. But on our way there, I was just like talking to everybody about my schedule this summer. And I realized I was booked 5 to 7 days a week from April until last week. Until like 2 weeks ago. I think I had one.
That's a strong season though.
Yeah, it was really good, but you spread yourself too thin. The Hobbit has a quote. Oh no, it's actually in the Fellowship of the Ring.
Getting some Tolkien quotes in here.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah. Bilbo talks about feeling like a piece of jam spread over too much bread, and you're not going to be. You're not going to be rich. You're not going to be
right.
satisfied. And then I was realizing the times between my projects, the times between gigs, I was just sleeping. Like there was no life between those times. So it's like, all right.
Your body just needed to recover so you could go execute again.
Yeah. I'm plugging in the charger, getting up and doing it again. And
I've definitely done that to myself way too many times throughout life.
Oh yeah, it's super easy to do because this job is so rewarding and you're getting so much dopamine from that. But then when the winter comes, you don't have any more supports. So it's like, oh my gosh, all my validation, all the things that I care about, all the things that are bringing me joy, I cannot do because there just aren't as many gigs. The gigs aren't going to be as cool. You're not getting those big events. You're going to have some Christmas parties, some solo gigs. But the big fun shows are in the summer. And so I was noticing this like huge just avalanche of my mental health.
It's like your body's kind of coming down at that point and your mind's starting to adjust to like, oh shit, where it does seem like this life can be a distraction. Mm-hmm. Almost. I almost have an addiction to movement. Like I just got to be going. But yeah, then your body starts to come down. And it sounds like for you, as that's happening, it just kind of some real shit came up for you. Is that?
Well, it's just like I wasn't doing anything. And then, because you have this cycle, it's like a microcycle of your sleep cycle in music where you have your daytime is the summer. That's your playing. And then you rest during the winter. And I really like learning and I really like implementing new strategies and new techniques into my play style and just into art in general. And last winter, I just did not learn as much as I wanted. I did not produce the music I wanted. I didn't, put time and effort into the projects that I needed to do because you have to take those steps. You have to have those ladder steps each season in order to go, all right, well, now we produced this many songs, we recorded them and we've made our content or whatever. And when the summer hits, we can play the gigs and have that stuff backlogged. And I just wasn't doing it because I was just sleeping. I was like, I just didn't get out of bed. And
right.
And so I was like, I noticed that around February last year. Once I got into a therapy, it really helped me kind of realize these cycles and be able to start breaking those cycles. And so, yeah, it was really helpful. And then it helped me get through this summer being so intense that I was like, okay, now, I'm still booked about, I think I have a weekend off in November.
Nice.
But doing things that are enriching to your actual humanhood outside of art and music has been really helpful, going to the museums and making time to not just like scroll because that will just tear your
doom scrolling.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's like 4 hours later and you feel like absolutely, it's like eating like bags of chips, just like back to back to back.
Yeah. You don't even know you smash the entire thing of Pringles. Yeah. And then you feel like shit for the next 24 hours. And yeah, it can be it can become such a distraction. It almost sucks because it's built in to like being a musician. You have to be online as well. But there's been days where like we have a social media like meeting on Tuesdays, Daniel and I, and we're working through things together, doing like planning. And sometimes I'll go online to check up something. And next thing you know, I realize I'm still scrolling for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, you just wasted 15 minutes. Like, what the hell are you doing?
Oh yeah.
right now?
That's the hardest thing, because it's kind of like the drinking thing in a way, where it's like, well, I'm at a bar, they give me drink tickets so I can have some drinks.
Might as well.
And then
it's part of my pay.
Right. And then next thing you know, you're like, okay, well, they didn't pay me to take 10 shots of Rumplemints. That is not the intended purpose of that.
That is a night right there, man.
Oh, man, I remember we were in Deadwood one time, and the guy was, it's been a long journey. I've been doing this for 10 years now, just like playing with different bands, and it's gone through its waves. But one time there was a bartender up in Deadwood, and you get like one drink per set. You got to be really careful. They're pretty sticklers on it, because it's it's a casino.
Yeah, a drunk musician doesn't really make for a great musician.
Yeah. Some people are going to have really like a lot of fun, but not for the reason that you want them to have fun. They're just like watching. It's like watching a circus. There's a lot of bands there, and you're like looking at that guy, and you're like, dude, it's impressive that guy's standing, and he is playing some notes. He is playing notes. There are notes being played. Some of them are right, some of them aren't, but it's fun, But we took Rumplemints, and at that time with that band, we were like, everybody was like 23 to 25. So it was like, no real adults in the band. No one was actually holding anybody accountable. We were all just like, yeah.
Were there any women in the band as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, at least you had, they may be a little more sensible. It tends to be, when I see a band with a female in it, often they're usually like the voice of reason, at least from my experience.
Yeah.
But if you get all dudes together, we can be.
That's funny, because that's always what I say about an audience. I'm always like, because in college I was a big party guy, and I was like, dude, you got to have the percentage, man. You got to have 40 to 60. If there's more dudes at the party than chicks, it's going to be a bad party. Like, that's just how it goes. And it was like 40% dudes, 60% chicks. Because if you don't, dudes just like fighting and breaking stuff. Is like the ultimate, the ultimate path down. And obviously that's not everybody, but it's like, that's how you grew up. Those are the shows you watch. That is the society that we have perpetuated. Yep. Is the expectation is like, if you get a bunch of like really drunk dudes together, like they're going to break stuff, or they're going to, and that's never a good.
Unfortunately, that can be true.
Yeah. It's going to get to the, I love you, man. I hate you, man. I love you, man. That's where it goes. So like the same thing in a band, if you have like, it's built in to us growing up, where people are like, you gotta be open the doors and stuff like that, chivalry.
Yeah.
And so people just subconsciously, if there is a girl there, the guys are gonna be like kind of competing with each other to be like, oh no, that guy is a problem.
Yeah, that could be true. I remember we had a band from Denver. They were coming through town, and we let them crash at our house, and it was a female fronted band, but everyone else was guys. And we had bands crash at our house like all the time, but typically there's a lot of guys. But when they left, like everything was like all folded. She left like a thank you letter or like a thank you card on I was like, none of the other groups of guys have ever done.
Yeah.
It's like, you could tell she had like some hardcore female energy going there. She's like, I'm going to get these guys together and make it. And they're like a straight up, rock band, whatever. Like, she's a badass on stage, but she's like, I'm going to put some extra detail, make sure this is a good experience for everybody.
Yeah. I've been to Deadwood with a couple of dude bands that are all dudes, and the culture of the cabin is much different. Because you don't feel the need to clean up when it's like, I'm not like, even if you're not trying to impress anybody, right. You just see like a dude with his like socks and his pants, like on the couch, that does not make me want to do dishes. You know, I don't feel any shame. I feel not. Maybe that's what it is. I feel no shame when I'm with my dudes. But like I went up there with Deanne, and she was so great. I felt a lot of shame in leaving anything around, because then she wouldn't say anything. She wouldn't be rude, but she'd clean it up. She'd pick up something, and you're like, oh,
you're like, oh, I'm such an ass.
Yeah, I'm the worst.
You make sure you like rush to go do the dishes the next day.
Yeah, you're like, oh man. Cause what a great talent. It was such a great time. Cause
yeah, she's on top of the business end of things too. She like runs shit.
Yeah. I think I've just been way too spoiled with all the ladies that I've got to work with. You know, Maddie's been great to work with. I played with her for like 2 years. And she did the same thing where she was like, you boys are gross. And we were like, okay, all right. We should probably not be gross.
She's like, I'm going to leave for a while, and you guys need to get your shit together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, because we were like, oh man, Maddie, no, we can't just make you clean this up. Because she wouldn't, you know, sometimes she would, but most of the time she'd be like, you boys are gross. And that would be, we'd be like, all right, we all need to really.
That's the key.
Yeah, we all need to get our shit together, you know. But yeah.
So in kind of going back to the counseling piece and the culling of things for you, are there, that could be a tough thing to do, right? To go through. What are the things like, is there a criteria for you right now that you're trying to figure out like, oh, okay, it has to meet this and this and this if I'm going to keep it in my life?
Yeah, ultimately it comes down to like, I think one of the biggest questions in life is like, what do you want to do? And that is one of the hardest questions. Simple question, but even on a like a micro scale, on a daily scale, figuring out like, man, what do I want to eat today? If it's not scheduled, right? What do I want to do?
Right.
What do I want to do? And so ultimately, I have to kind of prioritize things and write it down. What are my goals this year? And what things am I doing that reach those goals? And what things in my life, what are they doing, you know? And so one big thing I had to do was really cut back on like going to the bar. Not that I didn't have fun, but it was like, okay, this activity, I'm not getting, it's not, is it making me better, well rested, well educated, or make me feel like I'm filling my soul, you know? And
right.
Having to go, I'm not learning anything. I'm not getting rested. So it's not counting for rest. And so I can go do these things because not everything has to have a purpose, but having scheduled time for all of that stuff, that's been really important. And
so basically making sure those kind of things stay in the place they need to be instead of like, oh, I'm going to the bar every single night.
Right. And also just like, what songs am I working on, and setting boundaries with people where it's like, you know, I've unfortunately had to tell a few people where they're like, dude, you got to join my project. You got to play on these songs. And I'm just like, I do want to be around you, and I do like being your friend, and I do like you, but like, I don't have time, and it'll be disingenuous for me to be like, yeah, man, I'll get to it. We'll figure it out. You know, like setting those boundaries and being like, look, man, I just do not have the time to work on this track.
Right.
And not even like, oh, I'm too good for this thing. It's just like, it doesn't like, what is the purpose of this activity? If it is for fun, I'm not having fun because I need to rest, or I'm not having fun because I need to be spending that time learning. Because if not, I'm going to get that guilt of, oh man, I didn't work on this thing in Ableton, or I didn't work on the video game project, or, you know, I didn't learn these songs for the Geronimo company, or, oh, the Harvey brothers need me to learn, you know, 10 songs and I haven't been working on that. And instead I was doing a track, which is fun, but we don't have
but it has no end.
Yeah. We don't have a release strategy. We don't have like, okay, if we're doing these tracks, what is it, an EP? Like there need to be more things in place and more thought to it than just like, I like this song, so we should play it kind of stuff, you know?
Right. It's interesting because it seems like the say yes to everything season is kind of important for a musician, or even like had an engineer was my last guest. And he's out in Virginia. He does a lot of production and all that kind of stuff. And he was the same way, where it's like, he's like, I was just taking anything that was coming along, hustling everywhere. It's like, I feel like it develops us, but yeah, there always comes this point where you got to start asking. That's what he was asking. The same question that you was, okay, really, where do I want to go with this? And how do I make sure it has a purpose, you know, and then slowly start getting rid of all these other things.
Yeah.
It'd be a really tough thing.
Yeah. And, you know, growing up, I had a jazz instructor named Bill McMosley, and he was so instrumental. You know, he was instrumental in growing me as a musician. But I used to play trumpet, and so he, you know, one of the things he said a lot of stuff that just stuck with me. You know, when you got an old guy, when you're like, I was like, you know, 14, 15, growing up playing horns. You know, you don't really think about what they say, but then it sticks with you and you get older and older. And he's like, dude, say yes to every gig that you can. If you can do it, do the gig, you know? And that stuck with me for a long time, because you only hear the first part, take every gig. But I didn't hear if you can do it. And that if you can do it is like, do you have time to learn all these songs? Can you actually play these songs? Because there has been a few gigs where someone will ask me, do you like jazz? And I'm like, okay, I can physically do that. It is going to take the economy of time. Like, okay, you know, you're wanting me to take this gig for $100 and it's going to be, you know, 20 songs of jazz. Like, you know, yeah. And I don't read charts because I just none of the gigs that I wanted to do needed that. And, you know, now getting older, I'm like, okay, charts are useful for some things. Like if you're wanting to do like the cruise ships, a lot of those cruise ships, if you can read sheet music, you can just go on a cruise and play that sheet music. And so there's drawbacks to everything, but yeah, figuring out what I can actually do and what I want to do, and that being a boundary to set is really tough, because you have to set a boundary with yourself too. Because like I got an offer to go on tour with a band this summer, and it sounded like a really cool opportunity. You know, it was with some cool bands. I wasn't like super stoked on the material, but you know, that's part of being a musician. You know, sometimes it's not about you. It's about the audience. It's about the venue, you know, when you're playing a show, it's venue. Oh, there's my camera. Venue, audience, and then yourself. And those are the things I think we get so caught up in being selfish. But I was like, okay, what's the time? And then I had to break down how much money I was making per hour on the road. And like, sometimes you lose money in music, and that's fine. It doesn't always have to be about money, but it was just like, okay, I'm losing out on a lot of money. And where does this opportunity get me? And does it actually help me get to my goal? Am I becoming better? Am I becoming smarter? Or am I getting rested and having fun? It seems like a little bit of fun, but like just having to set that boundary with yourself and others is the hardest thing.
Yeah, I just had something get offered to me that I had seen it before, and it got offered and it looked like a lot of fun. But then when I started really finding out the numbers, I realized, like, at least for where I'm at and what we're trying to do with the band, I was like, I unfortunately cannot make these numbers work, you know? And I was actually sad to do it because I wanted to, but I knew, like you said, it was that piece where it's like, not only am I going to probably lose money by doing it, I'm also not going to be making any money back here because I'm going to be gone, you know, those pieces, and those become the harder choices. Now you said, so the criteria making you smarter. What's your criteria again?
So it's like, am I getting smarter? Is this bringing me peace? Okay. Or is this helping me achieve my final goal? Because those are really like,
what's that final goal for you? What do you dream about ultimately?
I think that is the biggest part of it. 'Cause like, ultimately I want to make more stuff, like, and make it better and refine the craft of music, and not just the skills of, like, refining my craft would, I would say, is my ultimate goal. I've got a lot of like creative stuff I want to do, but all of my skills that I learn in my job, which is playing music, producing sound effects, composing, all of that is to make weird art. And that's what I wanted to do. I made it up here, and I've been learning how to best do that. And ultimately, you have to make money to make art, because if you're making art, it's kind of like Buddhism and meditation, talking about, if you're monetizing it, it ceases to be the thing that it's saying it is. Like, if you're making money on it, you can make money on a product and make that product art. But if your goal is to make money on it, then it ceases to become about simply the art, which isn't a bad thing. And I think a lot of times we get really caught up on, like, oh, it has to be all art, or it has to be all money. And it's like, dude, I think with a lot of these pop songs that I've started to learn, because I was in that way. I was like, oh, this pop stuff is terrible. And Victor Wooten talks about, like, it's pop music because it's popular. If you have popular music, people go to you. If you have music for musicians or art, you have to go to them, because there's fewer people that are into that. Right. And that's fine. It's not bad to be wanting to make niche, brainy, heady stuff, but don't be mad at your audience for not wanting that. So ultimately,
that's huge.
Yeah. My goal is to just refine the craft. And whether that is making popular music or making weird, brainy stuff, those goals are still, because I see the music industry, music business, navigating this thing that we do. I look at that as an art in itself. Like, it's its own puzzle. It's its own keys. It's got, there are so many ways of looking at products and marketing, and, even the algorithm that we are a part of, these, all these things are mapped through the human existence, like through society, through our own neural networks. All of these things are mapped in a way that expresses the human condition, and that is ultimately, I guess, what would be my goal, is like delve deeper into understanding the human condition and what we do. And the more you understand, the more you learn, and you learn more by being at peace, because you're learning about yourself. Then you read books, and you talk to people, and you learn about others. And then finally, I guess that kind of is my ultimate goal, is being able to express functionally the things that I'm learning in a way that is digestible and multi-layered. And it's difficult because, you listen to some lyrics and you just keep diving in. You're like, wow. I always talk about Hey Ya, because I think it's a masterpiece, and it seems like a, shake it like a Polaroid picture, and people like that.
Yeah, it seems like straight up bubblegum pop, but he's got some shit in there.
Yeah, you have to trick people into learning. You're not gonna.
Yeah. You
can't go. How effective are those people who just sit at a college campus and yell at people and are like, you know what, don't be gay. God's gonna set you on fire. Like, how effective is that really? Like, is that really the message that anyone is gonna be like, oh, you know what? I'm really glad that you're screaming.
Changed my life.
Yeah. Thanks for yelling at me. And I think a lot of times.
Guess I'm not gay anymore. Oh, I guess we're good.
Who knew that the cure to being gay is being screamed at, and being hated on? And it's like that. Also, that's like a totally. It's so weird to me that is a thing, and that's a whole different subject. But it's like, sometimes I spend so much time with this. Kansas City's music scene is so kind, and it's a good community, that sometimes I get almost insulated from, like, oh yeah, those people still exist. Like, there's still these hateful, messed up people out there, because you're so surrounded by like love and caring. When you're trying to look for loving and caring people and just being understanding, you forget sometimes. I guess I don't forget.
It's like, oh, people can be shitty too. Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Like I know people can, and you get wronged, and then you can just kind of like separate yourself. And boundaries is super good about that. If you start separating yourself from people that are actively doing things,
right.
And it's not that people are bad. I don't think that those people are necessarily like in their heads evil. It's like all of these thinking and all of this hateful thought continuously creates and morphs itself. It's like a Ouroboros of just like, you have to break that
kind of
cycle.
like you said, it's like the algorithms, all these things. It's like they were pushed through an algorithm in their life, you know, and it fed them all these certain things that got them to that point.
Yeah.
It's like, and the only way someone can change out of that is to have like a new algorithm come across or start presenting them with some new ideas and new thoughts that they're receptive to.
Exactly.
And which is that's a whole other hard game to play.
It's that cognitive dissonance, everyone's getting marketed to in some way. Like everything is marketing, and I really enjoy marketing. I'm not the best at it all the time because there's so much to learn. But it is funny that like when you break a lot of things down, it's always like a smarter pyramid scheme. Like a lot of things that people are like, what is that? Why are people doing this? It's just some sort of a pyramid scheme that they've been bought into. And it's really weird how prevalent those things are. It's like, okay, it's a multi-level marketing thing, but for ideas or, for bands. It's like, all right, if you invite 15 of your friends to the show and they invite 15 friends to their show and then we sell 20 tickets, then we'll give you $5 at the end of it. But don't worry, like you're part of our downline. So then when we headline a show, it's like there's just some things that I worked for like a pyramid scheme thing. It was a pyramid scheme with more steps. And the guy, it was
a very large pyramid.
It was a smaller pyramid than you'd think. It was not a very impressive pyramid. It was in like Salina, Kansas, and I was selling like
What was it?
I was selling AT&T.
Can you say?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I didn't sign anything. I think I could talk about it. I don't know.
Sweet.
This guy is somewhere in the ether. I think about him sometimes. But we sold DirecTV and like Cox internet. And if you would go to people at like Walmart and Sam's, and if they if they said, oh, I have DirecTV, then you would sell them Cox. And if they had Cox, you'd sell them DirecTV. And it would,
no way.
Yeah. And so you'd have,
that's what they're doing in Walmart.
Yeah.
I see those people stand there. I'm like, poop. I like jump into a different aisle. Like, I don't even want to talk to these people. I gotta go.
Allegedly, right? I mean, I don't know what those guys are doing, but I know what I was told to do. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so you'd get these intro, like, oh, it's a crazy deal. And it's like, $50 a month. And then it ups like 3 times the amount. But you're a subcontractor and you'd have to call like some guy across the country or in another country, and they'd be like, hello. And they would sign them up, and then you would get commissions for that. And
yeah. Sorry, my dogs are going nuts. I hope you're not hearing it.
I can hear them back there, but it's at least, good dogs. They're good dogs. That's protecting your home. That's what they're supposed to do, right?
Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry. I'm going to pause it. My dog is insane.
Oh, no worries.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. Sorry. We're having a lot of fun, and usually when you have this much fun, you need to wear protection. So I made sure.
So what is that for the listener?
It is
is that like a Roman?
Yeah, it's a helmet, and I was like, I gotta put the helmet on at some point, and I was just waiting for the right time, and maybe it was maybe a little forced, but I just really like.
Honestly, you could wear it for the rest of the thing. That would be great.
I don't know if I can hear you. The problem is I can't put my headphones on.
You can't do the headphones.
Yeah,
there you go.
I just
that's brilliant.
But yeah, so I worked at this. Like,
we were talking about how you were scamming everyone in Salina.
I was really bad at it. I was really bad at it.
You're really bad at it?
Yeah, because I would just tell people that it was really dumb.
That's probably a good thing.
I was like, here's the thing, it's gonna be really hard to cancel. And so I was trying to like give him advice on how to work around. So I'm like, okay, put a thing on your calendar and then come back here and switch again once it goes up. So you only have 1 month up and just keep switching back and forth so that you get a deal. And they were like, you can't do that. And I was like, I don't know what the rules are. But it was, so every morning we had these meetings and they would, and I was real sarcastic kind of jerk. I got kicked out of college. So I was just like at this sales thing, you know, there, and we would all have to wear like khakis and like our cruddy, like button up shirts. And we'd sit in a circle and everyone would like hold hands and it would be like, what are your goals? You could get a Rolex, you know, if you sell this many subscriptions, then you get to go to this big conference. And I was like, you guys are paying me $10 an hour. Like, that's what I'm here for with some sales commissions. I'm going to ride this out till you fire me, you know? Because I do not care about these sales. I do not care about your business. And they would like every day you'd get together and be like, what are your goals? You know, what do you want to do? How many things do you want to sell? And I just hate it. I hate when people try to make me do something. So I was like, they would get to me and they're like, what do you want? And everyone would be like, I want a Ferrari. I want a house. I want to buy my mom a house. And I'd be like, I want enough money to buy beer and cigarettes and a Porsche. And they're like, there's got to be something else. And I was like, no. They're like, well, beer costs money and cigarettes cost money. And I was like, yeah,
there you go.
That's why I'm here. You know? And I mean, like, I was like 19 or something. I was just so annoyed by this thing. Every morning we'd have to like write our goals because they're brainwashing you and they're trying to attach their goals to your life. And it's like just scummy stuff. And so I was a little, you know, I'm not going to swear. I was about to say swear, but I was a butthead.
You can swear if you want. Oh. You don't have to, but you can. Feel free.
Well, I was not a great young adult, and I was very mad at the time. So, they had a meeting, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go to Big Nose Kate's, which was a bar." Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe, maybe don't. Maybe don't. This was years ago, and allegedly, maybe it wasn't that bar. It was a different bar. It was a totally different
allegedly.
bar. Yeah, allegedly.
Probably a different one.
Whole different bar. And I went there. I was like 19 or something. And so it's a business meeting. Like they're having a whatever team, I don't know, team thing. So I go there and they just kept giving me beers. And I was like, I'm not going to tell you not to. And I didn't go to the bar. So none of the bartenders are in trouble. They didn't do it. It was these guys at this pyramid scheme thing. They're bringing me beers and I got like super lit. I was like, I don't know what, like walking around.
You're like, free beer. This is
free. Yeah. I drank like a pitcher and a half and just like nobody knew. So then we have to do all this paperwork and I'm like trying to not tell them that I'm not 21. And so we get all the paperwork done and he's like, what? That math doesn't math. And I just like kept diverting the conversation. I was like, oh man, weird. Must have been a different guy.
You're like, tell me about this this thing that we're doing.
Yeah. Tell me more about how many Rolexes I can buy when I'm like you, dude. And so I'm like worried that that's going to mess up my paperwork. And there's this dude, I think his name was like Kentucky or something. He had a name that wasn't a real name. And I every time I run into somebody, they're like, yeah, my name is like Axe. My name is Knife. I was like, okay, dude. I don't know what brought you to have a not real name, but that's cool. I will call you by a not real name. Also, come on, guys. You guys can't use like proper pronouns for people, but you can call a dude like Gunman or whatever. Like all these guys have nicknames. They're totally cool with that. They can't.
Like your name's not Gunman.
Yeah, your name's not Rex, T-Rex Knife, dude. But I can't call someone Tracy. You know, I was like, all right, dude, come on. You call him Big Dog all the time. You already changed. It's not his actual name. Like, what's your hang up? So
you can change the name like that.
Yeah.
You know?
So this pyramid thing, he brings in this like super tall, hot guy who has like a really hot girlfriend and has a fast car. And so he was like, we looked at him and they'd show us every day that look at how tall and hot and cool this guy is. You want to be like him.
Do you want a hot girlfriend?
You want a hot girl?
Do you want to be hot?
You will sell so much DirecTV to have a hot girlfriend who will stand next to your fast car.
Do you want to grow 4 more inches?
Yeah.
To be a towering. Anyway.
Yeah. So the dude we comes to paycheck time and he doesn't have paycheck for me, so I'm like, where's my paycheck? You know, I have some beer and cigarettes to buy as a little little bum 19-year-old gonna go live in my basement, and he doesn't have it, so he texts me and he's like, oh, I'm at Sam's. So I go to Sam's and he's not there. They're like, we haven't even seen him. And then he's like, oh, I'm actually at Walmart. So I go to Walmart and he's like, not there. And he's like, oh, I'm actually at whatever the other store was that he was at. And so I go there and he's like, never mind, I'm at the office. And I get to the office and he's like, oh, well, we don't have your check. And I'm like, what is going on? So I'm like freaking out. And I talked to this guy, Kentucky or whatever his name was. I can't remember his name. It was not a real name. And so he breaks into the office. Like, we're in the office. He lives upstairs in the office for some reason. He comes downstairs. We break in to the main guy's office, and he takes like a knife and like breaks into the filing cabinet and pulls out, and he's like, your check's not here. Oh my God, dude. Like,
this is absurd.
Dude, it gets weirder because the dude is sitting there and he's like, man, I don't know what's going on. He's like, this pissed me off. I don't know what he's doing. Oh man. Me neither.
It's like, you just told me you know exactly what's going on.
Well, this was he didn't know what was going on. The guy, he did the secondary guy, the car guy, he didn't know what was going on. So he was like, which maybe this was maybe like a crackhead looking for your thing they stole with you situation. You might be right.
Yeah.
He totally.
That's what it sounded. That's what it sounded like. I had a roommate once that was like that. It's like, whoa, I don't know where that $20 went. Well, let me help you. And they start running around.
Yeah, and they're like fervent, like
yeah, because you stole
it must have been that other person. I had a dude who did that. He stole my 3DS and then blamed the girl. I was like, he was like, she probably stole it and gave it to her little brother. And I was like, and then I put like some passive aggressive things about like, I don't know, loyalty or something dumb, whatever was cool in 2015. So this dude like helps me search for the thing, can't find it. And then he's like looking at his phone. He's like, dude, what is this? Like, what? The main boss was texting and was like, you know what? He must have collaborated with Fernando, a guy I never met, by the way. They fired this guy, Mexican guy who worked for him before me. And that's why I got hired, is because they fired some dude because he was doing the exact same thing I was doing, where he was like helping people get better deals. And they were really mad about that. So he says I was in cahoots with the only other Mexican employee that worked for him. Like, we were teaming up to ruin his business by me not getting my paycheck. And it turned out,
he's like, they all stick together.
Yeah, all Mexicans know each other, and they all just team up to destroy the white man. That's why they're coming over here, because that's what we think about. That's what's in my brain.
To steal this job in Walmart.
Yeah, let me steal this like
shit to people.
Dude, it was like a $300 paycheck or something. Like, it was not even very much money, you know? And
right.
Yeah. It was like, it's just, but when you first start a job, it takes 3 weeks to get your paycheck instead of 2. Like, that's it. It was not that big of a deal. But he accuses me of teaming up and collaborating. And and he was like, dude, this is messed up. Like, I don't even want to, Kentucky was like, I don't even want to be here, dude. This is ridiculous. Like, I've never heard of anything like this. This is crazy. And I was like, you're the one in charge, man. Like, I don't know what to do. He's like, dude, just go home and threaten to sue him. And so that's exactly what I did. And I got a paycheck. I said, nice. Yeah. I was like, I've got a lawyer and we're going to talk to you about discrimination and about my paycheck. And he was like, literally, I think like 4 days later, he had a check cut for me.
He's like, it's interesting. I know how to do a check.
Yeah.
I'll be getting that.
Yeah, because he was like, oh, it actually just takes 3 weeks. And I'm like, dude, it would have been like, if you were actually, it was just so weird and sketchy. I was like, okay, this kind of sales is not really sales. It's that hustle culture kind of thing where they're just like, you need to wake up at 4 a.m. and you need to work out 57 million hours a day. And if you're sleeping more than 6 hours a night, you're just a piece of crap and you better be getting into crypto. And it's like, dude, you're selling me something that you're not even buying. You are selling a course on how to make a course on how to sell a course. Right. And it's that kind of mentality. That really opened my eyes to it, just being like, oh, most people that are going to be like, you're the absolute bee's knees, they're selling you something, and they like generally people are not going to be that stoked on what you're doing, because there's so many people that also do the thing that you do. It's just like, okay, we have a working business relationship, you're good to work with, I like you, do the job, and hell yeah, let's rock and roll together. And that really, honestly, that experience helped me a lot in music, because a lot of people are going to be like, dude, I'll change your life. I've got the magic beans. I've got the dust. I'm going to blow it on you, and you're going to magically be Post Malone. It's like, dude, I've got like 1,000 followers, on Instagram. And if that were really true for me, that you were going to make me magical, you probably wouldn't be coming to me, especially at the time. Yeah. Now where I'm at in my career, I don't really run into people like that. But like at the time when you're playing, like I'm playing one coffee shop every like 5 months, and we have a 30-minute set. Like no manager is going to be like, you are the next big thing. Oh my gosh, you're Childish Gambino with your 5 songs that you've ever written ever. Like, we need to manage you, or like, you pay us this much money.
There's so many people. It's like, hey, I'm from this agency, or I'm from this record label, or my cousin works at this place, where it's like really early on, we got accustomed to being like, cool. And then you just kind of walk off, because it's like, no.
Yeah.
It's not true.
Yeah.
I'm sure
life in general, and music and entertainment, it's a lot sillier and dumber than it seems. Like, it's like, okay, like that, it's not magic.
Expand on that.
Yeah. Well, like, you get into these like conspiracy theory type thinking, where it's like, oh man, there are these magical giant collaborations of people that are conspiring straight against you. And then really, it's just a lot of people doing their job. Like, that's everything. It's just like not that great most of the time. That record label guy, he's the actual dude, is just going home and like drinking wine and watching How I Met Your Mother or whatever. Like, you need to make this bigger than life persona of yourself, and how like you're like, oh man, big brain. But really,
well, that's when I had a band in college, and we got a development deal. And so we went out to Nashville, and they brought in like some heavy hitter producer, and he used to be a band back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And he was trying to get this point that you're talking about across to us, mm-hmm. And he was like, let me tell you a story about this one gig I had. It was like a whirlwind gig. He's like, our band was going really well, and they send a limo, and this limo picks me up in my house in Nashville, takes me to the airport. He said, I flew across to another country. We played a huge show, signing autographs. He's like, then they fly me back home. Like, it's all within a weekend, basically, or like, a few days. He's like, the limo brings me back to my house, and I walk in my door, see my wife and kids, and my wife looks at me and goes, hey, the dog shit needs to get cleaned up. I got the bag in the kitchen for you.
Exactly.
And he's like, so I went and grabbed the bag, and I went out, and he's like, I'm sitting there picking up dog shit in my backyard, just like laughing, because he's like, oh yeah, this is real life right here, picking up dog shit.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is it's just like, when you get rid of the mysticism of it, it's way more beautiful than that, because it's like, you do your job, you play your, when I was in Deadwood, I got to meet I think the Blind Alabama Boys, and the Big Something, and the bassist for Marshall Tucker, like a bunch of random musicians, because we were there for the Deadwood Jam with the Cowardly Lions. And nice. That's just a dude. Like, it's just a dude. I worked at this knife store in college and high school, and there's a really nice Dutch lady who ran it, and I was talking about meeting with this dude, and like talking to this guy about art and music, and like where my life was going. And she was like, he takes a shit, you shit, he shits, everyone wipes their ass. Like, I got to meet Billy Bob Thornton playing a show one time, and
nice.
Yeah, it was just like, I'd never seen any of his movies. So everyone was like, don't talk to him about his movies. And I was like, I don't know how to. And you talk to these people, and it's like not that glamorous. Like, he's a short guy smoking a cigarette outside of this theater, and he just was an old blues, like he's like an old blues dude. He just wanted to talk about his gigs and chilling. And like ultimately, a lot of these videos of like people with all the chains and the cars and the mansions, like those are owned by production companies, and they rent you all that stuff. They rent you the latest fashion. They give it to you. It's part of your deal a lot of the time, not every time, obviously, but generally you have all these guys and all these kids, they're seeing in their head like, this is what being famous is, or this is what being renowned is, or this is what success is. And really it's like, dude, that's infinite debt, like the infinite debt, like, because you don't own any of that
stuff.
Stuff.
Cycle where you sign another deal to pay for the other deal. And
right. And so like a lot of the times I had this argument with a few different musicians where they're like, I don't want to be a jobber. I don't want to be a jobber. I don't want to be someone who just,
what do they mean by
I don't
that?
want to be someone who just shows up to gigs forever. And I was like,
gotcha.
Like, that's what it is though. Like, that's what it is to have like the difference between sustainability and like explosion. And I've never been someone to like, oh, I want everything. I don't want the world. I want a place to rest and a place to play and art to make, you know? Because if when you get so caught up in like the fantasy and what it needs to be this way, you know, that this person needs to it needs to fit my perception of what I think reality is, instead of being like, oh yeah, I need enough food to not die, and I need to pay off these things to not go to jail, and I need to not break the law because it's a problem, you know? Like, you got to pay your taxes. You can't just like not do the things that, like, it's not glamorous. The reality of the situation is not as glamorous. There's moments that are where you're like, oh, this is rock and roll,
and soak those up and enjoy them. Yeah, bask in it.
And for me, you know, it's like you get to go to a beautiful place. You're on a gig and you go and you see this like beautiful sunset, and it's like, wow, not a whole lot of people get to see this, and when they do, they paid a lot of money for it. And I'm just glad to be here experiencing like friendship and community. But because I played a gig at the Hard Rock Casino, and at the time, two of the members of the band were dating, so they stayed in one room, and then the other two members of the band stayed in another room, but then I stayed in my own room, and I was like there, and I just started journaling, and I'm in this massive hotel room, like 2 king-size beds, just by myself, and I'm like, this sucks, dude. Like, this sucks. Like, I hate this, and it really, because all the bars were closed, so I couldn't get any drinks. And I walked around the casino for a while, but I don't gamble because I hate losing. So I'm like walking around and I'm just seeing people, and they're like scratching the screens of the casino. They're like, and it's like,
dude, 2 a.m. at a casino. I was at a Hard Rock one night, same thing, room to myself. And I went down. I'm like, all the bars are fucking closed. And it's just this saddest thing in the world. I was like, this seems so sad right now. What's happening?
I played a good gig. And it was just like, you know, you get on this high of like the show and the crowd, and you're like, yeah, you know, and you're playing stuff and you're looking at people, and I always get really existential about stuff. So I'm like looking in people's eyes, and I'm like, what brought you here? Like, why are you, like, people are going crazy. They're going manic. And all of a sudden that energy's gone, and you're just in this like stagnant place. It smells like cigarettes. And there's just like these old people spending their retirement, like scratching the screens at 3 a.m. And then I go back to the hotel room, and it's like just me and my thoughts. And I'm like, oh, this is what kills people. Like, this is what kills these rock stars. Like, that is not normal. Like, that is not, humans are not supposed to have that kind of dopamine, like peaks and valleys. And so that's where the consistency needs to happen. That's where the understanding of this is not the whole thing. And I have to be okay with whatever it is. Consistency is the most important thing, because that was like, and luckily I couldn't just go and drink or like do drugs or something, you know, because
and drown out.
Because then you're just distracting yourself until the next big thing, because nothing you're going to do is going to get you the same feeling as nailing that show, nailing your parts, knowing your work. You worked hard, you did the right thing, and the crowd loves it. Your set list worked. Like that, all of those things, that's what
Mhm.
it's really all about. And if you're finding joy in that thing, you can find joy in a show of, 10 people connecting with your audience and
Right.
connecting with people. Or you can find it in, obviously more people screaming and shouting and dancing. That is always going to be awesome. But if you're always
Right.
looking for the high, if that dopamine like punch is what you need, that is always, you're going to end up in a cruddy hotel room. You end up always, you're in a room somewhere with nobody you know. And, when you're with the band, that's what I really like about, Twice on Sundays and everybody. There's a really good community, and there's a really good, like, everyone's really in there together. Like, we're all looking
Right.
at each other, and everyone gets to hang out, and we go to bed, and there's a community, there's a camaraderie.
Mhm.
But sometimes there's always going to be a show. You're just in that room by yourself, and it's just you and that weird Gideon's Bible and some weird stains and a picture that makes no sense on the wall. And you're like, is someone looking
Right.
through the mirror at me? I don't know. Could be some creep or something. Because
Well, I guess in some ways a great goal is, at least for me, is can I be in those quiet moments by myself and still be at peace?
Yeah. And that's like,
And I think that, yeah.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just kind of reiterating the same point. So you're good to go.
Yeah, that's like the most beautiful thing. Because sometimes you really got to get through that darkness, and you do need to feel those feelings, but you got to feel them. You can't, like, you have to feel those things, like those bad times when you're like, what am I doing? Like, what brought me here? Did I make the right decisions? I used to work at like a crop research center. I did concrete. I worked at a coffee shop, did all kinds of different stuff. I worked at a zoo. The path that's brought me here has been so convoluted. And at some point, if you're constantly questioning and you're constantly unable to just sit and be content in the moment, those things are going to find you. And they're not going to find you when those regrets and thoughts and darkness and hurt. It's going to find you, and it's never going to be convenient when it finds you.
Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, man, being able to sit in those moments and be like, okay, these are the things that are bothering me. These are those like shadows that are following me at night and, keeping me up. I need to address that. And I think a lot of times we can get caught up, especially as artists, where we're like, that pain is necessary. Like, you need that pain to make something. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, I always say, like, art and music, people don't start doing it because they're having a good time. But you can continue to do it, and you can find a good time. And that darkness isn't necessary doesn't make you a good artist. It made you find art, but that's not
right.
Because, some of the most beautiful things in the world are really sad. Like, you look at a flower and it's beautiful. The most beautiful flowers aren't really perennial flowers. It's a flower that's not going to be there very long. Like, the most sought out flowers are something that's very rare and delicate. And the part of the beauty is that it is so fleeting. And being able to be like, yes, I'm going to be okay with just this moment, instead of being like, I need to mass produce this and I need to make money on it. And I need to just make sure I can produce it forever. And because, that's kind of, again, I keep saying microcosm of society and of what we've been told we need to do, because you cannot sell yourself. You cannot sell things to yourself. You can't continue making a 3% increase of happiness every year. You're not selling your happiness to the stockholders. You can't get a loan on your happiness and it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to get a future. I'm going to sell futures of my happiness because and I'm going to invest it in this thing. You cannot act like you're the economy of time, the economy of happiness. It doesn't operate like what we want it to. We've made money
Right.
our currency, and it works that way because it's comes out of the human, experience. And so it's like you have to be okay with, like, you know what, I'm not gonna eat this perfect steak dinner every night. You can't. You're gonna, like, that is gonna hurt you eventually.
Well, and I think that is one tough part of this industry as well, is when you're performing, especially like you were talking about, doing those 5 nights a week, or like for me, it was being on the road and you're constantly playing, constantly on the go. Like I love that shit,
Oh,
like
yeah.
being in the shit. But you're always, like you said, the dopamine, everything's just firing like on 100. And, and the, it's like, that's not normal life for anybody usually. And it's like, we all have these highs and lows, and being able to actually embrace, like, I think I always saw like sadness or fear or like just regret. I saw these things as like a problem to be solved in a sense, where in some ways it's like, sometimes you just have to sit with it. Sometimes you just have to let it be. It's like, no, there is this regret of this thing, and I actually can't solve that because it's in the past, or there's this, I feel down today and I have no other solution than sitting in this, or maybe getting some sleep, those kind of things. It reminds me, there's like in meditation, there's like this practice where if you have an itch, instead of trying to scratch it, you just let it be. And it's one of the hardest parts of like meditation for me, because it's like, it does teach you like, oh, I can sense it. I can feel exactly where that itch is on my body, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to sit here with it and still focus on my breathing and still try to center my thinking. And to me, that one like practice, I feel like I'm learning to apply that like throughout my entire life, because there's so many things that you can't solve and you can't control, but can you still have peace in the midst of that? And I'm not perfect at that, but yeah, I think learning to sit with those emotions and the highs and lows, I think that's the problem. It's a beautiful thing about, like when life on the road or playing show after show, living in these highs, but I think maybe even younger artists, if you're just starting out and experiencing that, just know that there will be times where it's just going to crash.
Oh yeah.
And you're okay still. And that's what's so scary when, you watch people like Chester Bennington. That's the one that really got me, because Linkin Park got me through a lot of shit in my 20s. I think probably in some ways probably helped me not kill myself. And then, I wonder, I don't know him obviously, but I wonder if that is a hard part for them too, of not being able to sit with those really heavy down times as well.
Yeah. And your support system is so important. And knowing yourself and setting boundaries with people and understanding like what people's intentions are, and that is so important. Knowing and caring about the people around you and your family, and knowing who to go to in those times, because especially I think a lot of times, as a guy, you're taught a lot growing up. And unfortunately, I'm so sad. It's such a sad thing right now that this idea, like you're talking about, is so sold to people. Like you're saying, sometimes you have to sit with it and go through it, and don't scratch the itch. Sometimes that it's not even an itch. It's your body, telling you something. And just like you scrape your knee or you hurt your finger, it's going to hurt. It tells you not to do that. Your body is telling you, and your mind is a part of your body. And it's like, dude, do not do that. That's why that hurts. And unfortunately, I think a lot of times artists and, men are told not to deal with those things. And those things are what make you good. Not dealing with your emotions makes you a tough guy, makes you masculine, pushing all that stuff down, when it just makes you easier to prey on. And like, in the 80s and 90s, drugs were so prevalent because you could just make, as a producer or as a manager, it was so easy to just take a young musician, get them hooked on drugs, and they are not thinking about the contracts they are signing. They are not thinking about what they want. And next thing you know, you're like Elvis. You're down the road. People have already sold your likeness. You had no idea. You were not present for your entire life. And then all of a sudden, it's
God,
over.
that sounds scary.
You know, yeah, and you know, I've had some
That's like heart sinks, man.
dude, yeah,
Thinking about that being your reality.
and that's been the reality for so many people, because of the way that those contracts are structured. You know, you're signing a massive deal and they're giving you a lot of money, but you have to pay that money back. And without financial understanding, you don't know, oh, this money is fleeting, I need to invest it. You think that train is going to, the 3%, you think you're going to continuously make 3% on every year, 3% growth. That's a healthy business making 3% growth every year. That is impossible to sustain forever as a person, because you have to make it in other ways, right? There's a lot of different ways, but when you have someone selling,
that's why a lot of artists invest in other things, you know, like Jason Derulo does, you know, car washes.
Exactly.
He owns a bunch of car washes, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're exactly right, because you get that investment. And so many people, you're caught in, I don't remember the guy's name. There's that meme going around where there's that like old singer guy and he just looks like a zombie and he's like,
I don't think I've seen this one.
It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre because it's this guy and he says, you know, I love doing it. Maybe he does. Maybe he just wants to continue performing. But a lot of times you have these performers where you are so tied to contracts that you got the thing that they promised you. You got the fame, you got the fortune, but it costs something. Everything has a cost. And so if you can't sit and just be like, you know what, I'm fine, because ultimately, what is the lifestyle that you're shooting for and how do you maintain that is super important, because it's like you are a lot harder to take advantage of. People aren't going to have those things where they can just like lord it over you because you have some sort of independence. I was talking to a kid the other day and he was like, you know, oh, do you know famous people? Like you make music for a living. And I was like, it's not that cool, man. Like I don't work with record labels, and not because I wouldn't or anything, but it's just not the path that I sought. It's not really what I want to do. I'm all about just sustainability and being able to continuously understand the business and make money and do the things I want to do. I want that freedom. Right. And I was like, you have a lot more freedom with a speaker and a microphone and a guitar, because you can go anywhere and just play a show to make a little bit of money than you know, getting these massive loans and getting stuck, because where else are you going to get that? Where else are you going to get that loan? They have you, you know, which is fine. Yeah.
Because no one else is going to give you that loan that they're giving you.
You cannot, you know, they have your Ferraris and your chains, and it's not a big conspiracy. It's just business. They're not your buddies. You know, most of the time with business deals like this, like you make friends in it and it's great, but ultimately you're manufacturing a product that needs to be a certain way in order to create revenue for a, you know, whether it's a bar or a business or, you know, it's what is it? It's an investment. You know, people with that kind of money, they're investing in stuff. They're not giving you money. And that's like the biggest, like mind altering thing that young people really need to get, because a lot of people, it's so easy to get caught up with people being like, you're the best I've ever seen. I want to give you the stars and the moon. And, it's just a loan. It's just a loan, which is fine if you understand what it is. But there's all the it's like what is it, Plato's cave, you know, where they have all of their smoke and mirrors, and they're like, that's reality, when you have 3 steps beyond that where you're like, oh, that's reality. Oh, this is a business,
where they're seeing the shadows on the wall.
And then it's like, oh, there's multiple steps of realization to get out of that simple mind of thinking, because everything seems it is dumber and sillier than generally it appears, because it's a stick with a thing on it. But the real world is then way crazier when you have the responsibility of actually using all of these theories, using all of the concepts, and then applying it is way crazier. We do sound. I do sound design for a video game. And it's me and a new studio, Castle Studios. Shout out to you guys, Vincent Orsolini.
Yeah.
We do music and composition for video games, and I'm the creative director for that for Vigo Entertainment. So I'll talk to the directors of the video game, and I'll talk to the devs, and which it's all virtual now, so I'm not really talking to them. I'm on Discord or whatever, or Zoom.
Right.
And so I've actually not met in person. I don't even know what a lot of these people look like. But you have all these concepts where it's like, okay, this is what the level is going to look like. Here's our goals. Here's the breakdown. Here's the script. And I've been working for a year, and I've not seen the game. The game is in development. I've seen screenshots, but like I've not played the game until Tuesday was the first time I actually had the game in my hands.
Wow.
And it's in development, so I'm in Unreal Engine, like. It was the most real thing because all these concepts, because like working with Vincent's great because he's a great composer, but our brains work so differently. So he's like very analytical of like the little things, and I'm very analytical of like the big concept. Like maybe it's a little woo woo or it's like I think that's actually I probably should say maybe it's a little bit cerebral, where it's like. Oh, I know the thesis. I'm thinking of it as like a paper where it's like, okay, this is the thesis. This is our general idea. And then this is where the story needs to go. And these are the emotions that we need to purvey in these sections of the game. And these are concepts.
Right.
Like, for example, I don't want super repeating melodies in parts of the game that are going to take a lot of time. Cause then you start getting frustrated. And you kind of want, if it's like, depending on if it's a puzzle, I really want it to be like peaceful and calming so that you're having, I'm solving this puzzle. I can sit in this like music for a long time. But then if it's like a mechanics thing where you're jumping and dashing and floating and doing all kinds of stuff, then it's like, you want them to be anxious because it makes that part kind of harder. And that's the purpose of it. These are all great concepts, and I think, in theory, but like I've been talking to, every week we get in the studio and me and Vincent are having these like really heady conversations where it's like, okay, we're composing something. We have no idea what it looks like. We have no idea, what
that's a challenge.
Yeah, we have no idea how it's actually being implemented. And so I can see things in my head. Like if I can move an object in 3-dimensional, I can see what it looks like on each side in my head. But it's way different when it's actually in your hands. And so that was I almost cried like a few times because I'm using a lot of like sub frequencies and programming the loops separately, like intricately inside of Unreal. And I was like, okay, this concept works. And we've gone through a lot of contract meetings. So it's like, okay, I've talked to the devs. They trust what I can do. And I know we can do this. And then actually seeing it work in the game, I was like,
yes. Like a year of work to come to fruition. Dude, we should do a podcast, you, me, and Vincent. Vincent was on a few weeks back, but that would be, we should try to do that where we all jump on. Maybe we could even do it at a studio.
Yeah.
And because I'd love to dive in. Unfortunately, I got to land the plane on this one, but I'd love to dive in more of that video side, the licensing side, that kind of stuff too. But man, this is really cool because I feel like I really enjoyed our conversations in the car, and I feel like we captured as if like we were driving through Branson Hills.
Yeah, man, it was really fun.
But the last two questions though, before we take off, I wanted to ask you, right now, how would you define living a great life?
I think living a great life is finding the answer to what do you want to do and finding steps to do that are manageable and accessible and peaceful, and finding that peace, being like, what do I want to do? I want to sit here and build Legos. That's awesome. and get away from all of these expectations of what that looks like. Because again, reality is way weirder and dumber than you think. And happiness is, you could be happy. Sometimes I'll walk with my dog and there's someone with like a big flower patch and there's a bunch of bugs on it, and I'll look at the bugs, and that's happiness. I'm happy about that. That's awesome. And it doesn't have to be a Ferrari or this weird cerebral thing. It's like, nah, dude, like, go bake with people that you love, spend time with your community. You know, I think that's what it is just like, what do you want to do? And then small steps to reaching that thing, and each small step of finding that peace within yourself and getting rid of the shame that's attached to it. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't like that, that's lame. Dude, no, like, be a nerd, be a whatever you want. Doesn't mean that, like, be the president. Well, if you want to be the president, you could be involved in local politics and go join a, you know, community a community cooperative, and then you actually, that is the thing that you might want, rather than this like unattainable thing. Look at smaller versions of it, smaller versions of the thing you love. Find those smaller things and see what you really love about it, and then you can just hone in, and it's the most amazing thing ever.
And I think people forget, even the big things are built because you took a lot of little small steps.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't think a lot of people, you know, obviously there's people running right now that didn't go up the ladders in politics, but predominantly people in politics started locally and then continue to, you know, work their way up, especially in, it's, you know, gig after gig that builds a band,
right?
You know, and
you're
I love
you're like a weightlifting guy, right?
Yeah.
So you don't start weightlifting with 300 pounds. That's, I think, the simplest thing, you know.
You can,
yeah,
but you're not lifting for another 6 months. But
yeah, you're gonna get crushed. So that's kind of the micro.
But yeah, the last question: how would you define creating great things?
Whew. I think creating great things is making a bunch of little cruddy things and then learning from those things and then understanding what a great thing is. You know, I don't think making a great thing, I wish I could remember the study. There's a group that basically they had two different people. One group tried to make the perfect piece of pottery, and the other group just made stuff. They're like, yeah, just make as much as you can. Try to make as much as you can. And at the end of the study, the people who were tasked with making the perfect pot didn't make anything, and then the people who made mass-produced pots actually got really good at making pots. So I think making something great is enjoying the process of making rather than the outcome of it. It's like, oh, if I just love making things and love playing and find joy in the process itself and learning the process and things that come with it, that ends up being more beneficial. And I find myself making more great stuff than when I'm trying for the process of actually making something great. I just can't get it done because I'm too focused on it being perfect instead of just like, oh, I'm having fun making the song. And whether it's a dumb song or whatever, I find myself actually getting things done when I care about it less, when I have less of my ego and my own identity tied to it. And which has been a thing about the video game. It's way easier to make stuff for other people. Not that I don't care about it, but I'm making it to serve a purpose and enjoying the process of making it rather than being like, oh, this has to express my like deepest, darkest philosophies that has to convey this. Because it's like, oh, come on, man. Gotta get out. Daniel actually said something really wise one time. We were driving. We were going to rehearsal and we were just talking about making art. And Daniel was like, yeah, it's just self-serving sometimes. Like making stuff for yourself.
It becomes I think so much of it can become self-indulgent.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said.
You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was like, dude, that like hit me. I had to stop talking for a minute. I was like, dude, that's exactly it. You know, sometimes we spend all our time servicing ourselves and it's like, all right, this dude's just masturbating right now. He's not doing anything for the actual general it's not serving the
Like
idea.
the audience is like, did you need us to be here? Because
Yeah.
I think you're doing fine on your own.
Yeah. What is it? What's going on here? I feel weird. I feel like I shouldn't be watching this.
Well, you said something earlier in the podcast where, you know, you're seeking to bring value to the venue, then to the audience, and then to yourself. And I think that is, especially when it comes to like on the local level, I think a lot of people have it flipped. I know I have done it the other way around, where it's about me, and then I'll think about the audience, and then I'll think about, you know, and so flipping that around, it's interesting because you want to be authentic, but it's like can you tell your authentic story in such a way that the listener, the audience finds themselves in it?
Yeah.
Like they find themselves in it instead of necessarily trying.
Yeah. You're still
like,
there.
See how awesome you are. Yeah.
You're still the one doing the thing. John Mayer says 12 songs for them, 1 for me. You know, you're still there. You're still telling your story. And, you know, there are billions of songs out there. There's, you know, infinite number of songs that are great that the general audience can identify with, and you still tell your story with it. And you have the microphone. You're actually the one telling the story, and that's what people are identifying with. And so you can tell your story. It doesn't have to be all 100%. These are on the top charts right now. That can be some of it, you know, but it's a general story. You have a ton of time. You have 3 hours to tell your story. And it's something I'm always learning, like, okay, how do I provide with this while still having my sad songs? You know, because I like sad kind of bluesy and like folky tunes. But then I'm like, all right, I have to do my Barbie Girl mashup, which I still like. I still like that song.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's Barbie Girl and like Call Me Maybe, you know? And I just thought it was really dumb and funny. And people like it, and I like it. Like, stop having shame in things that you like. If it's silly and fun and you identify with it, and it's something that the audience can sing and vibe with, and it's like, oh man, everyone's like, I hate Taylor Swift, and that's just like a popular thing. I'm sure there's like, be fun with it, have fun, you know? If there's probably a Taylor Swift song you don't hate, and that shame is holding you back from having a good time, you know? It's like you're being the dude in middle school dance who's like sitting back, who's way cool and
too cool to dance.
Yeah, I'm not going to do Gangnam Style, man. I'm on the football team in this middle school town of 500 people. You know, but everyone's going to think about how cool I am when I sat in the corner the whole time and crossed my arms. All the girls are going to come just like running at me because I'm the coolest guy in this room. Oh, yeah. Oh, play Skinner.
So, you know? Cool.
Everyone's going to love it when I say Freebird for the 58th time this show. Everyone's going to think I'm the coolest guy. It's like, dude, just actually like something. Just, what do you like? It's okay to like dumb stuff. Everyone likes dumb stuff.
Absolutely. Well, dude, let everyone know how they can connect with you, check out your music.
All right, perfect. You know, I play in a bunch of projects. You can check me out. Follow Caleb Geronimo Music on Instagram, or the Geronimo Company on Facebook. If you go to my link tree, I got t-shirts. These are that you can pick out whatever side you want. It'll ship to your house. Geronimo Company t-shirts. I'll be at the Harvey Brothers this weekend. I'm playing with the Cowardly Lions twice on Sunday. Follow all those guys. But follow me on Instagram. That's where you're going to catch me. Every week I'm in a different thing. So Wednesdays, 8 to 11, we have an acoustic jam with Scotty Eggleston at O'Dowd's. And then 11 to 2, it's a full electric jam with The Fling, myself, Vivid Jojo, Nick Marshall, Seth Ranahan, and then all of Kansas City's, you know, musicians. We've got original musicians, everything. No matter like,
and it is a blast. Yeah. I've been able to stop by once thus far, and I had a blast.
Yeah, you never know what you're gonna get. We're always having new people. And then Thursdays, I think this week or next week might be our last one. But I'm at F325 with the Geronimo Company. It's another jam, but it's a little bit more us playing, and then we'll have 1 or 2 people where we'll back them. So it's a little different than the Fling. The Fling is, it's the thing. Follow us on Instagram. You can kind of see some of the stuff we do. I really can't describe it. You kind of gotta go. But yeah, check out the Geronimo Company. You can follow us, Geronimo Co. on Facebook, and then Caleb Geronimo Music.
Boom. Well, dude, thanks for making the time.
Thanks. This was so much fun.
Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.